Spirit, pour your joy in me, pour your joy into my heart. Oh, wonderful Spirit, pour your joy in me, pour your joy into my heart. Oh, wonderful Spirit, shine your light through me, shine your light into my heart. Oh, wonderful Spirit, shine your light in me, shine your light into my heart. Wonderful Spirit, pour your love in me, pour your love into my heart. Wonderful Spirit, Thank you, Linda. That was sweet. Good evening and welcome to Awakening Wednesday. I want to thank you all for being here, whether it's in this very moment or if it's in the moments later. I'm glad that you stopped by. So just up front to let you know, Universal Spirit Center is opening June 20th. And that means that your beautiful essence will be welcomed back into the church for church service Sunday morning. We'll be doing two services, the 8:30 service, which is a more meditative service, and then also the 10:30 rock it out, rock it out, rock it out. So please, we're looking forward to seeing you as well, that we will continue to be a virtual presence because we are a global community, and what a beautiful gift it is to share with all. And that also means Wednesdays, Awakening Wednesday and Kitchen Conversation, starting June 23rd, will be open to everyone to come and feast and fast with us. Looking forward to it. We have an amazing night in store for you tonight. I'm very grateful and just so honored to have this beautiful spirit in the house. You will see her later, Liz Myers. Whoop, whoop. I got to stop doing that on the mic. But we're really blessed to have her in the house. And what we love to do is send out the blessing to prepare the way, to prepare the essence of spirit. So let us take this moment and take a breath. And as we breathe in this very moment, we breathe in this dynamic essence of knowing that the power and presence of God is all that there is. That this absolute beingness is moving in and through us, and it is the breath of us right now. And the infinite possibilities of love expanding in this moment is palpable. For the energy of love is right here, right now, feeling the dynamic energy of change. Change in our consciousness, change in our feeling vibration, and yes, change in the words that we speak. So we speak this life of change into existence. We speak this elevated awareness of love and light into divine right action here and now. As we prepare our mind, our spirit, and our body to receive all that God is. Through Liz, through Linda, through Bob, through me, and you. So it is. So as we prepare, the song always gets us there. was yummy, Linda. Thank you. Bob is like, I'm ready, I'm ready. So, just so you know, we are working as we move through going from live production to live physical in person. So there are things that we're working on to make sure that we tighten those things up. And tonight, Bob is kind of running the house. He's the roadie, he's the production, he's the sound, he's everything. So let's give Bob some love. As we get ready to bring Liz Myers forward and find out a little bit what Liz has been doing, I know she is such a creative and a powerful woman in this divine world, a counselor, a mindful coach, and I think she has a audio book. Look what she did during the pandemic. So I'm looking forward, anything about change and habit, you know, we seem to sometimes have this curse that habit is bad. No, it's an opportunity to grow and expand. And so I'm so grateful to have Liz here. So as Liz is getting set up, we get ready to bring her forward. Linda will play a little something for us. And in a few moments, you will have the one, the only. Everybody's like, oh, she didn't tell us you. Linda's like, wait. The one and only. Liz, thank you for being here tonight.
You're welcome.
Did you turn on?
I turned it on.
Oh,
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you so much for being here. And Liz Myers.
Awesome. Thank you, Gino. That was beautiful. I love your song. All right, so let's do this. Like Gino said, I am a coach and a counselor. I've been working with folks for many, many years on changing habits and changing your life. You may know me from singing here at Universal Spirit Center, which I love to do. Today I will be speaking. So singing will come later, I think in June. So look for that. And yes, I do have an audiobook coming out. It is in production right now, and this summer it will be released. I'm hoping for June, maybe, hopefully, July by the latest. And it's called A Pocket Guide to Habit Change. So I really do hope that you will check that out. All right. So what do I want to tell you? I've been in this personal growth field for over 20 years. And I've seen people grow in many ways. I've seen people go and try to change their life and have a lot of struggle and a lot of feelings of failure about it. And so I wrote this book to really look more at how you can feel good about all the steps along the way. So even when you're having those challenges, even when you're faced with something where it feels like you just keep going uphill and you can't quite seem to get there, I have many tips in this book to really help you to take a more gentle approach to the entire process. Does that sound good? I hope so. Yes. So let's see. Today I really want to focus on three things, three of my top tips per se from this book and from my 20 years of experience working with folks on habit change. Now, habit change can be many things. It may be certain thought process that you need to change. It may be, well, my doctor says I need to quit smoking. It may be that your spouse says you need to lighten up on the drinking. It may be that the pandemic kind of made you tank a bit, right? I'm sure we all picked up some different habits along the way, and usually it was meant to be a coping skill, something that you felt like, this is giving me some kind of relief in this moment. It's giving me some kind of joy in this moment, and that's a good thing. It takes time to develop coping skills. It takes time to develop habits that serve us well. And usually with the best of intentions, something arises where you started partaking in it, and then all of a sudden, it just kind of went awry. All of a sudden, that coping skill that made you feel good, or that coping skill that gave you that temporary relief or pleasure has now taken a turn. And now it's kind of now inviting you to make a change and let go of it. It's kind of a bummer, right? It's like these things that were like, it feels so good, or and I'll share some lovely examples for myself and my own journey, but these things that feel so great that then feel so not great. So you kind of can feel a little stuck in that loop. So here, let's get to some tips. Let's get to the tips. All right. 1, be yourself. Know who you are. In the spiritual community, you're often more, I'd like to say, more aware, more conscious. You're really eyes open to what's happening. It's not so easy to just look the other way. And you may be able to for a while, but as you know, if you do any kind of yoga, meditation, prayer, any of these types of things, you will receive that inner wisdom. You will receive kind of what I say is like, it's knocking on your noggin. It's like, please, please make that change. And most of us kind of know the changes we need to make, but it's scary, it's overwhelming, it's another thing to do, right? So we may put it off. But what happens? The knocking gets louder, the challenge gets bigger. So I really invite you in, if there's something that's knocking for you, to really open the door and invite it in. And know that it won't be that scary with the small steps that I'll invite you to take. Sound good? Yeah. I love my audience. It's really great. So really looking at here, if you haven't grabbed a pen and paper, it's really helpful to consider what is it that you want and or need to change. This could be something really big that you've been waiting on for a long time. This could be something just really small. Either way, it's a change. And so any little movement with that change is going to make you feel good. It's going to make you feel like you can move forward. So, in these tips, I'm going to repeat this phrase twice. Keep fear at a level where it cannot override you or your progress. So keep fear at a level where it cannot override you or your progress. Now, how do we do that? Right? The way to do it is by shrinking it down and taking small steps, right? So one of my things is coffee, caffeine, lattes. So good. I just love it. And especially during this pandemic, I have my coffee in the morning and I'm fine with that. I have a small cup of coffee. It works for my belly. It works for my body. No problem, right? So the key is it has to be a habit that is not working for you, right? That works for me, so that's okay. The thing that was starting to really not work for me was my afternoon latte that it started, just the one time, and then it turned in, the next day. Oh, I like that barista. He's so nice. I'm going to go see him. I need to get out of the house. I need a break. I need this. I need that, right? I need a treat. Especially during this time, we all probably have been having a lot more treats, right? So, I realized that it was a coping skill and it was meeting a lot of needs, not just this tasty thing. I was also looking for energy, right? So you got to see what you're looking for. It's not just the item, right? There's these other things it's linked to. Which connection? Getting out of the house, right? Meeting a lot of needs. So if I were to just take that away and say, forget it, I'm done with lattes, no more, and then I had this empty space, I may have all these unmet needs. And then I may turn to something that's really not going to work for me, right? Or I just go back and I tank it up and I, have a lot more lattes, right? Because I can't cope. So the idea is to bring in a more step-by-step gentle process, okay? So the way to do that is we take one small step. And tip number 2 is replacement therapy, okay? So I call it replacement therapy. So what I would do then, instead of getting my latte in the afternoon, I could go get a green tea. Right, for my example, right? So it's still caffeine, still getting energy, still getting out of the house, still going to get a treat, but something that is more beneficial, something that is less kind of harmful, sort of speak. Less caffeine, there's actually antioxidants in the green tea, right? So it's kind of just a smaller side step. I'm not then shocking my system or shocking my body by just completely letting go. Now, sometimes you can completely let go of something. Maybe you're just so done with it and you're just over it, right? But many of us benefit from small changes, little side steps, replacement therapy, right? So in this example as well, it could be, okay, maybe green tea, you're like, I'm not excited about green tea. If you're not excited about green tea, it's going to be difficult, right? If you're not excited, somewhat excited about the alternative, it may be challenging. So you need to believe that there are enjoyable alternatives. Okay, so believe that there are enjoyable alternatives to a latte, to whatever it is that you are kind of overdoing, right? Or creating a habit, right? So, replacement therapy. Think about what you could do, how you could maybe reduce the frequency. Maybe instead you're like, okay, I'll do a latte twice a week, see how that goes, right? You can just reduce the frequency. But I often say it's best if you can find an alternative. My other alternative, right, is biking, right? Because oftentimes I need a break, I need a stress reliever, and I need to get some energy moving, right? So sometimes we go to the caffeine or the quick fix. Other times it's really looking at, okay, I need that energy, I need to move something, I need to move my body. So if I need to move my body, then exercise is another alternative. Now, in the beginning, I may not have found it to be enjoyable. However, over time, these things then become quite enjoyable and quite beneficial. So that brings me to tip number 3. Okay. So tip number 3 is about worthiness. So worthiness, really looking at your own self-worth and looking at, why you are worth it. So you're asking why you are worth it, and then asking why it is worth it. Why is it worth it to make the change? Because if it's not worth it, then who cares? Doesn't matter. I can have lattes all week. No one cares. No one's going to tell me not to, right? So I'm an adult. You're an adult. We're all adults here, right? You get to make your own choices, right? Which is the most powerful thing. And sometimes it's the thing that can also bring us down, right? So we want to have empowering choices. We want to make empowering decisions. And then when you make a decision that doesn't feel so empowering, take some time to pause and release any guilt, release any beating yourself up, because I get a lot of that with the people I work with, right? It's like, oh, I didn't do it again. Ugh, how many insults can I give to myself, right? And just notice if you do that. If you go into that space, it's going to bring you down into a more negative place. So the idea is to acknowledge and notice it. Notice that self-talk. See if you can distance yourself. And then ask yourself, what maybe would help me to turn this around? How could I have a thought or of encouragement to help myself? And if that's ever challenging, then looking at, we talk a lot about maybe inner child. I think we talk about the inner child here at the Universal Spirit Center, right? If you find yourself in this habit change game and you're like, okay, I'm going for it, Liz, I'm making this change. And if you notice that you start having this like beating yourself up, or I can't do it, or who cares, or this kind of stuff starts to come in, bring in that inner child. Envisioning yourself 5, 6, 7, 10 years old, however old you are when you connect to your inner child, right? How old is that inner child? And if that child's having a hard time with letting go of their latte, if that child's having a hard time with whatever habit it is that they're trying to break, how could you encourage them? What might you say to them? It's okay, honey. You can do this. I know change can be hard. I know change can also be amazing, right? There's new opportunities just on the other side of this challenge. There's new opportunities, there's new horizons to see just up the top of that mountain, right? It takes effort at first, and then that effort also shows how strong you can be. So finding what your encouraging words are. So if you're at home and you're writing some things down, or even here if you've got your journal and your pen, why are you worth it? And why is it worth it? How might it benefit you to let go of fill in the blank? Now, sometimes answering how it might benefit you, we can look at all different ways: physically, mentally, emotionally, maybe spiritually, right? There's some things I've let go recently that really helped me to feel more connected spiritually because I wasn't feeling so clouded, right? And so I also could notice I was kind of scared to go deeper spiritually. So I kept up with the habits. I was like, I don't know that I want to receive that, right? Sometimes we're afraid to go deeper. I finally realized that it's worth it. And it's not just worth it for me. It's not just benefiting me, but the other question is, how does it benefit others? How might it benefit the other people in your life or in your community, right? Me being able to go deeper and access deeper wisdom will benefit others in the community, right? And same for you. The more that you're able to access the truth for you, the more that you're able to be more in your authentic self and to let go of that other stuff, the more that you can benefit others and your own spirit, your own soul. So this piece of worthiness is really important, and I say it's a really great idea to write down all of the different things of why it could benefit others, it could benefit yourself. You know, why is it worth it to stay the course, right? Really addressing why it's worth it to stay the course, because as you know, as human beings, we can get caught up in emotions. So it's like, I'm having a good day, and I'm like, yeah, I don't need a latte. I'm going to go bike. I'm excited. Woo! You know, and I'm feeling really great. I'm feeling it's easy. It's not so hard. I'm feeling empowered. I'm feeling things are working. It's like I'm in my groove. It's a good day, right? But then there's those other days. Right? Oh, well, my washing machine broke and, you know, my dog is sick and, you know, whatever, my neighbor's mad at me or whatever, and everything's all, you know. And you're just kind of not feeling good. And what do we tend to do? Like, maybe kind of like go along with that energetic pattern and just kind of, well, gosh, I deserve a latte. Like, I need that latte, right? Or I need that cigarette. I need that alcohol. I need it, right? So it's really looking at, okay, well, in that moment, what does your inner child need? Does your inner child need the alcohol? You know, kind of looking at, and sometimes too, like being easy with yourself. Yeah, sure, like certain things you may do sometimes. I'm not talking about on occasion you have a drink, or on occasion you have this thought, or on occasion this or that brings you down a little bit. But really the long term, the habitual, the daily, the go-to coping skill, right? Because we want to feel free and enjoy our lives and not be scrutinizing every little thing we do and don't do, but really looking at when you're having a tough day, where do you have an outlet? What are they? What does your self-talk start to look like? How can you turn those things around? How can you change those things? So that's really, with this worthiness, I really invite you then to have this list of things somewhere. Because what happens is I call it the inner saboteur, right? And so I actually have like a vision for my saboteur, right? And I like envision that, you know, it's got this sword and a little pirate hat and it's like, you know, gonna come and I gotta fight it, right? And it's totally ridiculous, but that's what we need. You know, we need ridiculousness when we're doing things like serious things like changing our habits, right? We need to have a fun, ridiculous fight with our inner saboteur, right? And we also need to then, you know, speak loving kindness to the inner saboteur because we know that's what it needs, right? I'm going to fight you off a little bit. I'm going to have a little sword fight, and then we're going to talk loving, right? Once you've like backed it off, then we can chat, right? It's kind of like your little inner child is having a little crying fit because it wants what it wants. Let it cry. It's doing its thing. Then we can have a chat. Okay. So, what else do I want to say about this? Yeah, don't give up, but do give in to the awareness and wisdom that you learn along the way, and do apply it. So usually, you know, when we're making changes and we have this personal growth path, it's rarely like, this is great, here we go, right? It's usually more like, woo, you know, the hills and the valleys, right? So when you're going on this path, all I say is to try to see if you can let your hills and valleys be more like this, right? So a little more contained. So what I mean, instead of going up like this, as you're going through the process, try to notice the emotions. And if you start going, woo, I'm doing great with my habit change, so I'm up here and things are great. Oh, I'm not doing good with my habit change, so I'm down here, right? It's kind of what I'm talking about with this worthiness. We want to bring it more in the pocket. Okay, I'm doing good. I feel really good. I'm doing not so good with it. I don't feel so good. Just make the swings a little bit smaller, right? I don't expect anyone to be like this, right? Then we're flat. Then we're the computer itself, right? And we don't want to become more robotic, do we? We want to be more in the heart. We want to be more in that heart space. So loving kindness, allow yourself to have the ups and downs, but try to see if you can contain them a little bit, right? Now, this is usually where I'd say, does anyone have any questions? So with habit change, I am working on my audiobook. It's almost there. I think it's 23 chapters. They're all very short. And each chapter is actually designed to help you work through these different techniques. They're all different techniques, they're all different experiences, and you get to learn about a lot of my own habits that I've had that didn't serve me well throughout my life, right? My first job was working as a child protective service worker for the state of New Hampshire, and I was 21 years old. Now, I was very happy to be serving the community, but I didn't realize how sensitive of a person that I truly was, and I truly am. And so going through that, I picked up smoking cigarettes. I picked up drinking a lot of alcohol, right? Just to cope, because I was so overwhelmed. So when I knew that some of this piece, something that I share in this book, I knew that underneath it all, this job or position wasn't for me, right? I did know that. But sometimes when you are in a position where you can't just quit, you can't just leave, something doesn't match for you, but maybe you're in a contract, you've got to figure out how to get through, right? So with your own situation, having compassion for you, if you're in a situation, even like a larger habit change, sometimes it's a giant moves that you may need to make. The key is always small steps. The key is always, what support do I need and where and how can I get it? And the key is, don't delay as much as you can, right? So you know what your habits are that work for you. You know what your habits are that don't. For the most part, there's some that you may not know yet, if it's really serving you or not. That's just how we live life. We keep exploring and seeing what works and seeing what doesn't work, right? This is what we do. But once you know, take a little small step forward. Don't let that fear factor override you, right? So we keep the steps small so that success builds upon success. Feelings of failure often build upon feelings of failure. So if you find that you're in that space, make your steps smaller so that you have little successes that empower you, move you forward, right? So that your self-worth is there. So you know that you are worth it. You know that it is worth it. You're aware of your inner saboteur, right? So if this stuff sounds good, if you feel like, gosh, I think Liz might know what she's talking about. Right on, right on. Good, good. I do offer private one-on-one coaching. So that's something you can do. I do that over the phone. I also do that over Zoom. So that's where I'm at now. I'm sure I will move to face-to-face at some point, but just for ease at this point, all the changes, phone and Zoom. And I guarantee we have fun in the sessions. If one-on-one's not your thing, I do have a 90-minute workshop coming up on June 12th. It's a Saturday, and it's at Pilgrimage of the Heart Yoga. So if you're interested in that, it is outdoors, in person, real, in person, outdoors, and it's limited to 12 people only. So if that's something you'd like to do, then please do look at my website, Rooted Living Wellness, and I hope to work with you. Oh, you want more? Okay, great. Okay. Yes, please. Yes. Well, so I'll share some very tangible tips as well. You know, with this pandemic, it definitely was quite unnerving for me, especially in the beginning. I was working in the healthcare industry at the time, and that was very, very overwhelming. Uh, I decided to really get real about what I wanted to do with my time, with my life, right? I'm sure many of you picked up new habits and picked up new things. I really wanted to stay very connected to nature, so I actually picked up gardening. So I started gardening, and I've been growing food now for the past year. I now have 2 garden plots, and I love that. Um, and then I also realized that I needed to, in order to get more clarity, that I really wanted to have more of a daily meditation and yoga practice. So I started these techniques that I use in the book of creating a small daily practice. So I kept getting this knocking of like, you need to do yoga every morning. You need to do yoga and meditation every morning. I was like, okay, I've always been sporadic. I've taught yoga, I've taught meditation, I've done some meditation, but it just got really loud. So I'm happy to say I've been doing yoga and meditation. I think it started in November, so about 6, 7 months now. Every single morning, I do yoga and meditation. And I built up to it. I just said, okay, I'm going to do it for 7 days straight. Okay, and then after that, I'm going to see if I can do it for, 7 more days, 7 more. And I just kept doing it over and over and over again until it felt easy. At first, when I would wake up, I would be like, ugh, I don't want to do that. Like, why do I have to do that? I'm not really wanting to get up and do yoga. I'm hungry. All these like things, I wanted to eat. I didn't want to go do yoga. But I knew I'd written down the benefits. I had written down why it was important. I'd written down I didn't even want the knocking on my noggin anymore. I was just overhearing this like nagging, like it's like a child poking the arm and it won't stop. I was like, okay, just stop. I'll do it. And that's been so beneficial because then through that yoga meditation, I also got this message that said, you need to write a book. And it specifically said, write an audiobook. And so these practices then, it's kind of like you do one thing to really honor yourself. You really do this, you feed yourself what spirit is saying for you to give yourself that will nurture you, and then it leads to the next nurturing thing. And it leads to the next. And then the more, then you start to become more and more empowered. You start to feel, or at least I started to feel more clear, right? So I would say in this process too, it's kind of finding, I think for me, finding some kind of daily habitual practice that's small, it's very nurturing to do that. Even if it's for 5 minutes. I mean, you already do it. You brush your teeth every night, I'm sure. So to remind yourself these little habits that you already do, and then listen. So with that, to write the book, well, how did I do that? I gave myself writing goals. So I started with, I'll write for 20 minutes every day for a week. It didn't have to be on the book. It was just journaling. It was like I can do a free write because writing for 20 minutes every day on the book was so overwhelming. That was too much. My fear factor hit, right? Don't get overwhelmed by the fear, right? So you got to make the steps smaller. So I at first was going to do writing the book for 20 minutes, and then I said, no, I'm not going to work on writing the book for 20 minutes. I'm going to get this muscle of writing ready to go. So I'm going to journal for 20 minutes a day. So I did that for a week, and then I was like, okay, there's a lot of resistance there. I found myself, my inner child was kicking a lot and was very resistant and didn't want to do it. But I said, remember why it's worth it, and remember what your larger goal is, right? So I broke it up into steps, and I was able to write the book in 6 months. So it really, breaking things up, and then it just works. And then I started to be able to assign myself, like, okay, I can do a 3 hour. I built up the muscle, right? You build up the muscle, just like, we were talking about exercise and weight training. You do a little bit of exercise, you do a little bit of training. Then after a while, those 10 pounds are like nothing, and you got to go to 20 pounds. And then after a while, those 20 pounds are nothing, and it just kind of keeps building. So that's why it's really writing down those reasons of worth of, to help you stay the course, right? To stay the course. And then once you get to that end result, what's the next step, right? So writing the book, getting that done, and then workshops and talks and things like that. So then finding the next little step, little things all the time to help reinforce the habitual change that you're making. And then all of a sudden you wake up, you're like, wow, my life is totally different. I didn't even know it. So small steps keeps the fear low. Small steps helps you to slowly build up the muscle, right? And then all of a sudden you're able to, write for 3 hours where I could only do 20 minutes, right? And I definitely gave myself rewards. So one thing I will say is to give yourself some rewards. When you meet some of these smaller goals, and it can't be the latte reward, right? It's got to be something different. It's got to be, for the writing goal for me, I ended up getting myself, I always wanted one of those massage Thai mats, right? Because when I go camping, I can bring this, mat, and I love to go camping. That also reinforces my nature, right? So these different things that tie into each other that also help you to reinforce the lifestyle that you're trying to create for yourself, because we do create it, really. Mm-hmm. It depends, I'll say, yeah, a lot of times some of our coping skills, I say, that's why I call it like our coping skills gone awry. You know, having like a little bit of a drink to kind of ease the anxiety, no problem, right? There's no big deal with that. But then it can turn into going awry when it's like, okay, well now, just like you build the muscle to write more, well, you build the alcohol muscle to drink more. So it's kind of, it's kind of like, and that if it works for you, okay, but usually that doesn't work for a lot of people, right? To then build up your drinking muscle. I mean, some people maybe, but other people probably not, So knowing when something is then the benefit, it's kind of like what do they call it? Some kind of analysis, I forget what it's called, but when the pros and the cons, the cons are outweighing the pros, it's like, that's usually when right? Because the reason why you do it, this thing, it feels really good in some ways, but then it starts to like, now it's in this other category, and then you're having to deal with like, it's not just enjoyable. You can't just enjoy it because now there's guilt afterwards. You can't just enjoy it because now there's the poking in your arm. It's like, so it doesn't allow, I guess, there's almost like an inner turmoil that can be created, even if it's at a low level, right? But over time, you'll know it starts turning itself up until you finally say, okay, like, I'll do it. I'll make a change. And if it feels overwhelming, you can make the change just temporarily. I always say that. Just make the change for a temporary period of time. Just do it for 3 days. Do it for 5 days, right? Do it for that period of time, and then see what happens after that. Because then you get to experience what it's like to not have it. And then you get to also practice some of the techniques in the book, like delayed gratification and other things like that, that help you in the long term to kind of move forward with all the things that you want to do in your life. It helps you to see that variety, and there's so many opportunities, there's so many things that you can do in this lifetime, and it takes you out of that kind of like honed in focus of, I just like to do this activity, or I just do this to cope. It's like, there's like a gazillion things you could do, but we get kind of stuck in our little, bubble sometimes, which sometimes you have to do for a while. But then there's a time when you have to break out. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So what inspired you to take the small step? What made you go, oh, let me do this differently?
Well, a couple of things. I think in my life, my personality, I've often been someone who can kind of like overdo it, or I'll be, well, I'll just like quit it. I really, but then it would always feel very harsh. Um, and it was just not very gentle. It didn't feel very kind. And I think over time, learning more about compassion and loving kindness, that really helped me to see that there's a different way you can do things, and that I've learned a lot about the fear factor and the parasympathetic and the sympathetic nervous system, and how when you kind of really overdo things or really push yourself really hard to a point where the fear factor is just so high, that puts you into a place of fight, flight, or freeze. So that is not a way that will help you flow with movement. So making those small changes and little steps would really brought that fear factor down, for sure. Um, There was some other point about that as well. There's also this great book called The Kaizen Way by Dr. Robert Moore. And that book really spoke a lot about small steps for change. So, and it's a very short read. It's a book that I recommend in my book. And that really inspired me as well. Yeah. So, with your journey, with your change, I think, a lot of it is acknowledging what your needs are, really acknowledging who you are underneath. I think especially this year, I noticed my own, anxiety going up to a point where it just, wow, it was something different I hadn't experienced, in a long, long time. And so when that happened, it made me, how do I deal with this? What do I do? And sometimes you try things to help you to cope with it, or I tried some things to help me cope with it, and it worked temporarily, but it didn't really meet my needs, you know. Um, Ended up being, kind of getting into a space of like, I'm sure we all dealt with being alone or aloneness or loneliness, right? Some of those types of things of fear. Well, how am I going to deal with this? How am I going to deal with isolation? How am I going to deal with these types of things? So a lot of times it was like, oh, well, I'll just, eat my emotions or this or that, these different things that, it's not bad. It just happens, when you get overwhelmed. So that's the idea, is to notice that if you have a certain need or certain overwhelm, how else can you, what other coping skills or outlets or activities can you transition to replacement therapy instead? So I really have appreciated this time. And again, I really hope that if you are looking to make a change, that you won't wait and that you'll take one small step to make it happen. And if you need anything, Rooted Living Wellness, that's me.
I love it. And tell us again, Liz, when your workshop is taking place.
It's on June 12th, and it's at 1:30 to 3, outdoor courtyard at Pilgrimage of the Heart Yoga.
That's beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you. Um, and for those of you out there, we're having some focus issues with the cameras. They're doing their own kind of focus thing. So it was a different little focus on Facebook, great focus on YouTube. So don't know why that's happening, but there you have it. I thank you so much for being here and sharing your knowledge and your journey. So as we get ready for our conscious giving time now, let us just take this breath, and I have to say, Universal Spirit Center, you're absolutely amazing with all that you do, all that you give, not only monetarily, but all of the different things that we do globally in the world and supporting a world that works for all. I'm very proud to say that I'm a part of Universal Spirit Center, and I'm a part of this consciousness. So if you feel called to give tonight or whenever, we have many different ways. So just touch your heart right now. The breath of God is breathing me and resting in the breath of God. I know that all is well, no matter what's going on. The breath of God is breathing me and resting in the breath of God. I know that all is well. The love of God is loving me and resting in the love of God. I know that all is well. There are a lot of things going on right now at the center, so we'll take a minute and show you some of those things. And I think the first thing up is our Sounds of Spirit band is back in the house. Really excited about that. Yeah. They will be here this upcoming Sunday, and then they'll take a little break, and then on June 20th, when we open the doors officially, they will be back in full effect. Also, Reverend Kevin is doing a foundations class, which is a very popular class, the foundation class that teaches about metaphysics, it teaches about science of mind, it teaches about living, and as Liz said, creating, recognizing how you create your life. So check out for more information of that on our webpage, his foundation class that's coming up really soon. And as we always do it, the Racial Equality Project. This is the project that is very near and dear to my heart. We are waking people up in consciousness that equality is something that can be for all. And so along with Black Lives Matter and Frontline and Move On and so many other places and other churches and temples that are sending out love and ways to educate yourself, to become aware of what's going on, and to also get involved. We have the Racial Equality Project, and it gives you an option to do something every week, I should say, an action to do every week. And that's also on our webpage as well. And last but not least, the movie of the month. We do a movie of the month to support Black Lives Matter, to open our eyes to racism, to open our eyes to bias. And this month, it is Coded Bias, a phenomenal movie on how our intelligence, our artificial intelligence, is being programmed with negativity. It's being programmed, leaving out people and races. It's being programmed because it's just from one source. So we want to become aware of those things, not to run, but to become aware. And then Friday the 21st, we will come together in our community Zoom room and unpack it, talk about it in a divine, loving space. All are welcome. Thank you to everyone out there in Facebook land, YouTube, and on our webpage. Thank you for supporting us and checking us out from time and time again. The breath of God is breathing me and resting in the breath of God. I know that all is well. The breath of God is breathing me and that all is always well. Thank you for joining us on Awakening Wednesday. Practitioners are always standing by. We have classes. We have spiritual tools. Thank you so much.